Aurelia Thorne's fingers left bloody streaks on the cold, clear glass of the Genesis pod as Silas Morrow sealed her inside. The sterile scent of the biolab, once familiar as home, now choked her. "Evolution requires sacrifice, my love," Silas whispered, his voice smooth as poison through the pod's speaker, his eyes devoid of the warmth she'd built her life upon. The betrayal wasn't just in the lie, but in the perfection of the trap. Her own life's work, the mnemosine vines designed to store memories, twisted to erase hers. As the neural inhibitor flooded her veins, plunging her into darkness, her last coherent thought wasn't fear, but a vow. Remember. Make him remember. Centuries dissolved into a haze of fragmented light and sound. Aurelia awoke, not as herself, but as Flora, a blank-faced gardener tending the grotesque beauty of the poison gardens in Silas's gleaming city of Aethelgard. Her hands knew the plants, the scream lilies that echoed with phantom cries, the gilt moss that induced creeping paranoia, but her mind was a barren field. Only in dreams did shards pierce the fog, the scent of ozone and damp earth from her old Viridia Prime labs, the lullaby she hummed to a tiny, dark-haired boy, the chillingly precise equations for the ascendancy serum scrawled on a glass slate. These fragments felt like someone else's life, ghosts haunting her empty present. Aethelgard floated serene and golden above the clouds, a monument to Silas, the revered god-king who had ushered in this era of near immortality. Flora watered the regret roses, their thorns sharp as accusations she couldn't understand, and felt a profound, inexplicable sadness. One rain-slicked afternoon, pruning a particularly aggressive patch of aquanox weeds choking a filtration pipe, Flora stumbled. Her hand slammed onto a thick, pulsing mnemosine vine curling around a support pillar. Instantly, the world dissolved. She saw Silas, younger, his eyes alight not with love, but with a feverish greed. He held a tiny vial filled with viscous silver liquid, the ascendancy serum. "It needs a catalyst, Aurelia," he breathed, his voice tight, a pure, undiluted emotional resonance. Grief, the deepest kind. She protested, horrified, citing their ethics, the risks. "Our child," he said, the words hanging like lead in the air. "Imagine the grief, concentrated, powerful." She recoiled, screaming denial. "Never! He's our son." But Silas's gaze was distant, calculating. Evolution requires sacrifice. The memory shifted. A sterile medbay, their infant son, Kale, small and fragile in a crib. Silas leaning over him, not with a father's touch, but with a syringe. Aurelia bursting through the door, too late, the raw animalistic scream that tore from her own throat. As Kale went still, Silas turning, his face a mask of cold resolve. The serum works. His sacrifice ensures humanity's future. Then the framing. Her lab altered, holographic evidence fabricated, her desperate pleas twisted into the ravings of a grief-maddened traitor. The Genesis pod. His final hypocritical whisper, "Cleanse your pain, my love." Flora gasped, wrenching her hand from the vine as if burned. She collapsed onto the damp garden path, the rain mingling with hot tears streaming down her face. She remembered. She was Aurelia Thorne. Silas hadn't just betrayed her trust, he'd murdered their child and erased her mind to steal her legacy. The profound sadness she'd carried as Flora coalesced into a white-hot core of fury. The poison gardens, Silas's perverse playground, would become his downfall. Aurelia Thorne, the brilliant bioengineer, was buried no longer. She was the memory gardener now, and she would cultivate Silas's ruin. Her revenge was a patient, terrifying horticulture. She used her deep knowledge, buried but not lost, to create new flora within the poison gardens, hidden in plain sight. Ghost orchids, crossbred from mnemosine fragments and rare luminescent fungi. Their delicate pale blooms released invisible pollen carrying splintered memory shards, moments of doubt, forgotten failures, whispers of betrayal, designed to cause subtle identity confusion and paranoia in those who breathe them near Silas's inner circle. Mirror ferns, engineered from reflective moss and gilt moss strains. When touched, their fronds didn't show the viewer's reflection, but projected a fleeting, distorted glimpse of their darkest secret or deepest shame, amplified by the fern's bioresonance. A psychological landmine. Oblivion ivy. A creeping, almost invisible vine Aurelian nurtured in the deepest, darkest corners. It was programmed to seek one specific biosignature, Silas's, and upon contact, trigger a cascade reaction, forcing the victim to relive a specific, agonizing memory on a loop. Her masterpiece weapon. The key lay in Silas's sanctum, a vault deep within his golden spire, lined with mnemosyne vines holding backups of his precious memories, his insurance against any threat, even time. Infiltrating it required resources and allies Aurelia didn't have as Flora. She started small. Using ghost orchid pollen near key administrators, she sowed discord, creating small cracks in Silas's perfectly ordered world. Reports went missing, minor systems glitched, and a low thrum of unease began to permeate Ethelgard's gilded halls. Silas dismissed it as stress from overseeing his perfect society. She found an unexpected ally in Lyra, Silas's current wife. Lyra was beautiful but seemed fragile, often wandering the gardens looking lost. Aurelia, as Flora, carefully tended a secluded bower Lyra favored. One day, Lyra confided in the silent gardener, her voice trembling. He forgets things, important things, about us. Sometimes he looks at me like I'm a stranger, or worse, like he's looking for someone else. Aurelia saw her opening. She subtly introduced calming, non-manipulative herbs into Lyra's space, gaining her trust. "The mind is a garden too, my lady," Aurelia murmured one day, pruning a mirror fern nearby. "Sometimes it shows us things we hide, even from ourselves." She saw a flicker of fear in Lyra's eyes. The seed was planted. The Eternal Bloom Gala arrived. Erthelgard glittered. Silas, resplendent in robes woven with light, stood beside Lyra, radiating benevolent power. Aurelia, disguised among the serving staff, watched, her heart a cold stone. This was her stage. Her plan unfolded like a deadly bloom. Phase 1, the Ghost's Whisper. Modified ventilation systems near the main hall dispersed concentrated ghost orchid pollen. Guests began experiencing fleeting moments of disorientation, hearing phantom whispers, seeing momentary flickers of faces they couldn't place. Nervous laughter replaced easy conversation. Silas frowned, scanning the crowd. Phase 2, the mirror cracks. Aurelia maneuvered Lyra towards a specific ornate mirror fern displayed prominently. "It's exquisite, isn't it, my lady? They say it shows true beauty." Curious, Lyra reached out and brushed a frond. Instantly, the fern's surface shimmered. Instead of her reflection, it showed a horrifyingly clear image. Silas, years younger, placing a still, tiny form, Kale, into a medical incinerator unit. His expression detached, clinical. Lyra's blood-curdling scream shattered the gala's music. "No, my child! What did you do?" She recoiled, pointing a shaking finger at Silas, whose face had gone deathly pale. Phase 3. The truth pollinates. In the chaos, Aurelia triggered a hidden device. The mirror fern didn't just show Lyra. It released a cloud of specialized pollen carrying the spliced memory, Silas disposing of Kale, combined with the raw, visceral horror Aurelia had felt witnessing it. Hundreds inhaled it. The memory, vivid and traumatic, imprinted itself as a shared waking nightmare. The crowd didn't just see Silas's crime, they felt it, lived it for a horrifying second. Panic erupted into full-blown chaos. "Murderer! Monster!" The God King's perfect facade crumbled. Silas fled, his guards overwhelmed by the terrified, enraged crowd. He barricaded himself in his memory vault, the walls pulsing with stored mnemosyne right. "I am eternal," he roared at the sealed door, his voice ragged with panic. "You cannot touch me here." The air shimmered, and Aurelia stepped from behind a cluster of vines. She had used the chaos to access a forgotten maintenance conduit. She wore simple gardener's clothes, but her eyes blazed with centuries of suppressed fury. She held a single, exquisite flower, the soul locket, a bloom she'd engineered deep within the poison gardens, its heart a complex lattice of biocrystalline material. "Eternity is a cage you built for yourself, Silas," Aurelia said, her voice echoing strangely in the vault. "You taught me that." She raised the soul locket. "You stole my memories. You stole my son. You stole my life. Now, I reclaim them." She placed the locket gently onto the central control node of the vault. Instantly, the oblivion ivy she'd painstakingly woven through the ventilation grills weeks earlier surged to life. Guided by the locket and Aurelia's focused will, it slithered across the memory vines like liquid shadow. Where it touched, the stored light, Silas's precious backups, flickered and died, consumed. The ivy didn't stop. It sought Silas himself. Drawn inexorably to his unique biosignature, it coiled around his ankles, then his wrists. He shrieked, not in pain but in absolute, soul-rending terror, as the ivy's touch forced the curated memories upon him. The weight of Kale's small, lifeless body in his arms, the suffocating pressure of drowning from the Aquanox memory graft, the crushing guilt of betrayal amplified 1,000-fold. He collapsed, writhing on the cold floor, trapped in an endless loop of the agonies he'd inflicted. Aurelia watched, her vengeance complete. There was no triumph, only a vast, hollow exhaustion. She approached the convulsing figure. With careful, precise movements, she attached the soul locket to a thin chain around her neck. The oblivion ivy retracted, leaving Silas still and silent, his mind a shattered ruin. The locket pulsed with a soft internal light, a miniature biosphere now housing Silas's consciousness, forever reliving his curated hell in perfect, silent isolation. A beautiful, eternal prison. Outside the vault, Ethelgard was in upheaval, but not destroyed. Lyra, emerging from her shock with newfound strength, rallied the citizens. Silas's reign of emotional manipulation was over. The poison gardens were to be purged. Aurelia, still appearing as Flora, presented Lyra with plans she'd secretly drawn up, plans based on her original benevolent Viridia Prime designs, gardens that healed, that fostered peace and genuine connection, using purified Mnemosyne strains to share joy and comfort, not fear. Lyra embraced the vision. Months passed. Ethelgard transformed. Golden towers still gleamed, but the air felt lighter. Laughter replaced the low thrum of anxiety. The new gardens bloomed with vibrant, healthy life. Aurelia worked quietly, overseeing the transformation, her identity still hidden. The soul locket pulsed faintly against her skin, a cold reminder. One sunny morning, tending a bed of luminous, calming serenity lilies, Aurelia heard a sound that stopped her heart. A child's laugh, bright and clear. She turned slowly. A young boy, maybe 5 years old, with messy dark hair and Aurelia's own intense green eyes, was chasing luminescent butterflies near a restored fountain. Lyra stood nearby, watching him with love and a deep sadness. "His name is Kale," Lyra said softly, approaching Aurelia. "Silas, he couldn't bear the guilt, even buried. He had Kale genetically replicated years ago, a sick attempt to replace what he'd destroyed. He kept him hidden, raised by servitors, never truly letting him live. He was just a possession, another thing Silas controlled. Lyra placed a gentle hand on Aurelia's arm. The Mnemosyne vines, they showed me everything, Flora, or should I say, Aurelia. Aurelia couldn't speak. Tears blurred her vision. The boy, Kael, ran up, holding out a shimmering butterfly that dissolved into harmless light on his palm. He looked up at Aurelia, his head tilted. "You smell like the good flowers," he declared. Then, a spark of recognition, deeper than memory, flickered in his eyes. "Mama?" It was a question, tentative, born of an instinctive bond that not even Silas's cruelty could erase. Aurelia fell to her knees, gathering him into her arms. The scent of his hair, the warmth of his small body, it was different, yet achingly familiar. The vast, hollow space inside her, carved out by betrayal and vengeance, began to fill with a fragile, radiant light. Lyra smiled through her own tears. "He needs you. We all need the real Aurelia Thorn." Aurelia didn't reclaim her old name publicly. She remained Flora to the world, the humble gardener who helped heal Ethelgard. But to Kael, she was Mama. She told him stories of stars and brave explorers, of kindness and courage. She taught him about the good plants, the ones that helped people remember happy times. The soul locket still hung around her neck, a silent, cold weight, a reminder of the darkness she'd faced and conquered. But when Kael laughed, when he ran through the gardens she'd helped create, when he hugged her with pure, uncomplicated love, the cold receded. The scars remained, deep and permanent, but they no longer defined her. She had lost everything, fought through centuries of darkness fueled by vengeance, and emerged not just victorious, but whole again, holding the most precious things Silas had tried to destroy: her child, her future, her hope. The gardens bloomed, vibrant and alive, a testament not to poison, but to resilience, love, and the enduring power of a mother's heart. The long winter was over. Spring, warm and sweet and real, had finally come. Aurelia Thorn, the memory gardener, had cultivated her redemption, and it blossomed more beautifully than any revenge ever could.